listening. Most of what you're being is made of lies. Us begin one-to-one, ain't different by the sun. So wake up in the morning when you rise. Sing along now. Come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you've never sung before. Let it fill the air, fill the people everywhere. We the people here don't want no war. No doubt some folks enjoy doing battle, like presidents, prime ministers, and kings. So let's all build in shells so they can fight among themselves and leave the people who love to sing. So come and sing a simple song of freedom. Sing it like you've never sung before. Sing it like you've never sung before. Let it fill the air. Let it fill the air. Tell the people everywhere. Tell the people everywhere. We the people here don't want no war. Yeah, we the people here don't want no war.
I hope you're doing well and avoiding the evacuation from the fire. I mean, has anybody evacuated in here? We have one who evacuated, Neil, right? Zia. Several announcements. I've got a few to make, and then if any of you have one announcement, you can make yours. But the men's group meets this Tuesday at the Columbus Library at 10 o'clock. Now, the next time we meet, we'll have a new member ceremony, and if you're interested in becoming an official member, I'll let Elisa know, and we will have that ceremony, and then we'll put you through the whipping line. No, just teasing, but we'll have dinner at Iron Key, is that the name of it, after that, if you want to come.
Beautiful dreamer, wake unto me. Starlight and dewdrops are waiting for thee. Sounds of the rude world heard in the day, lulled by the moonlight, have all passed away. Beautiful dreamer, queen of my song, list while I woo thee with soft melody. Gone are the cares of life's busy throng. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me. Beautiful dreamer, out on the sea, mermaids are chanting the wild laurel. Over the streamlet, vapors are born, waiting to fade at the bright coming morn. Beautiful dreamer, beam on my heart, even as the morn on the streamlet and sea. Then will all clouds of sorrow depart. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me.
Music you'll hear this morning. It's only rehearsed one time, so thank you. Now, I want to say one little thing about music before while I'm doing that, would you turn to reading 434? This is our intro. I usually read it by myself, but I want you to look at it. But sometimes when we play or sing music in this community, it's not specifically what people would call religious music or spiritual music. But just so you'll know where I come from, and you may not come from this place, but I don't believe in putting any kind of music in a box and saying this is spiritual music and this is not spiritual music. In my opinion, all music is spiritual. Because I don't put God in a box. And so I don't say this is spiritual music and this is not. I don't put God in a box, I don't put music in a box. So when you hear music and it may sound like it's rock and roll or maybe even rap, in my opinion, there's spirit in it. So that's my thought about music. You know, we're living in very scary times right now.
That's for sure.
We had lunch with some friends yesterday, and they're very afraid. And just about everybody that we've talked to is afraid of what's happening in our country right now. But I think it's important that we don't cave into that fear. You and I don't cave into that fear, and we don't lose a sense of our values and where we are and what we can do. In spite of the fact that people in power will, usually in political power, will abuse their authority and their power, we shouldn't cave into that. We should hold on to our values and be what we can be and do what we can do and not be discouraged and not be driven into despair, because I think that's part of the tactic of power-hungry men, is to drive people into a place of panic and despair where they're just paralyzed. And so I want you to think about that as we read our opening, these words. And just, it's 434, it's anonymous, but right above it, I think, is something I thought when I was looking at 434, I thought, well, 433 is good too, and that's from the book of Psalms and the Hebrew Bible. How rare is it, how lovely this fellowship of those who meet together. The second reading, I'd like to open with these thoughts. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Amen.
Amen. My grandson is on a basketball team, and the coach was telling him the other day, he said, now when you get the ball, he said, don't panic. People, when they throw a ball, they tend to panic, and my grandson, he's a big panicker when he gets the ball. The coach says, don't panic, pivot. And I thought, well, that's a good lesson for life. You know, don't panic, just pivot. And you pivot to find, in order to find an opening, you know, so you can pass that ball. So think about that. Don't panic, pivot. Somebody's got a call back there. Okay, so our opening, we're on the hymn, right? Chalice writing, sorry. Who's our, okay, Sue's gonna write our chalice. You know, while she's on her way down, I want to thank those who light our chalices, those who are our greeters this morning. Joy and Jerry, and our hospitality. Who's hospitality? Jane. I want to try to remember that every Sunday, so all yours, Sue.
It's on. It's on.
I'm technologically challenged, so I think what I chose this morning, actually, I think what I chose this morning actually works really well with everything. This was a little blessing that we did in our RA program at the UU Church in St. Louis when I was there, when my boys were little. I used to work with the preschoolers. And this is, it's very simple, but it's actually poignant too. We are blessed to be here. We are blessed to be here together.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes. So far, we're free to worship. So far. Okay. Chalice lighting. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Now we're going to sing our hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. And Derek and I are going to play that for you. Are you ready? Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. One more time. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Derek always tries to get the last chord.
The last
You notice that? If I go like that, he goes like that.
I just wait long enough, I get it in there.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all.
see how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled waters. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind.
Our reading is 666. Now, if you're a Christian, you know that's a sign of the devil. If you believe in that kind of superstition. When I was a chaplain at Florida College, one of the trustees came to me in my office and said he was very concerned because he got his North Carolina driving license plate and it was 666. And he was really concerned about that. And I told him, you know, not to worry about it, but he was worried about maybe being a target for people who are superstitious about numbers. You know, we kind of laugh at that, but then people are afraid of the number 13. You know, they're superstitious about the number 13 or the number 3. But anyway, ease your minds, as the song said about this reading. The legacy of Carrie. Despair is my private pain, born from what I have failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome.
You still deny yourself, let me rise to you, let me reach down into your pain and soothe you.
I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestries of broken ferns.
Drug dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag,
Rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds.
but it's time to know about the new as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity to an inhumane world courses in my veins.
From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope.
And I begin anew the legacy of their caring.
Okay. Thandika. Does anyone know who Thandika is? I'm not sure. Professor, do you know? Do you know who Thandika is? Who wrote that?
I do not.
Okay. Late one night in September of 1979, I found myself on the living room floor of the apartment house I was renting in the fetal position. How did I get there? Well, every part of our lives has a history behind it. And that moment that I found myself in that position has a history behind it. And a history that has some trauma in it, as do most personal histories. And I want to share some of that with you this morning. I want to say a few general things before I do share my story. I've not ever told this story before, mainly because I guess the main reason was shame. There's a lot of shame in this story. And with shame comes guilt, and with guilt comes feelings of inferiority. And those types of things have always prevented me from just sharing my story with any of my congregations, even when I was in the Methodist Church. I never shared these stories. But I was inspired the other day because I heard a TED Talk, and a woman shared her story, and she opened up about her life and her struggles. She was a unisex person. She was an intersex person. She was born with both sexes, and she was persecuted. and humiliated. And she finally spoke out about her life and her struggles. And I was just really inspired by her courage and her bravery to come out and accept herself and be who she was and overcome the shame and the guilt. So I thought, well, I'll share my story. The other is I don't like talking about myself a whole lot. So I'd rather talk about you. But anyway, just some general things that I want to say before I share my story, that, we have events in our lives that we can sometimes forget, or we remember those events from childhood or whatever. But one thing that we're learning more and more, and if you've read the book, I can't think of his name right now, The Body Keeps Score, that bestseller, the emotional pain never goes away, and it just lives in us throughout our lives if we don't somehow come to grips with it and deal with it. We may forget the memory, we may have the memory, but we don't always necessarily feel the emotion we had when the event occurred. But that emotion doesn't go away. And there's always been a saying that I've really liked, and it's that we spend the second half of our lives overcoming the first half. If we get that far, if we get to half our lives, or we spend the second half of our lives overcoming the first. If we dare to overcome those parts of our lives that we need to overcome. And the other thing is that one of my wife's aunts used to always say that growing old is not for wimps. And, when I was growing up, I always thought that as you grow, life becomes easier. As you get older, life becomes easier. That's not been my experience, and maybe not yours. It gets difficult. It gets harder. It becomes a struggle, really. And it doesn't get easier. So aging is not for wimps, but I've always wanted to make it a rule in my life to try to age as much as I can with some dignity and feelings of worth, and not try to fight and resist aging, Carl Jung says, mothers want to look like their daughters, or they want to look like their daughter's sisters. But I won't point the women, because men do that too, Us men, we want to stay young forever. But anyway, and I realized at a point in my life that I can't move forward until I go back. That I couldn't move forward until I went back. And to me, that fetal position that I was in was, to me, metaphoric of going back to the womb time. And I'm not speaking literally, I'm speaking metaphorically. I see it as a rebirth, but I don't see it as that kind of rebirth that you hear from some fundamentalist Christians, that you've got to be born again and all that nonsense. That really it was a transformative time in my life, and that I was being reborn, but I didn't feel it at the time. It was a painful place to be. And after that, I became suicidal, and I tried to kill myself. So I just want you to know that. One of the reasons I want to tell my stories is I want to be real. And I get so sick and tired of sham, especially in the pulpit. I get so tired of this image that we ministers feel like we have to project, that we're perfect and we've had perfect upbringings and we were good kids all along. And that's just not true. I had a friend who said, a psychologist who said that the ministry he felt like was psychologically the most dangerous place to be, because you feel like you have to project this image of perfection. You have to be, the guy that has the reverend in front of his name or her name, and you have to be that way, and you have to present that to the public and to your community that that you're a good person, you've always been good, never made mistakes or anything like that. I had a student in one of my classes in Brevard, and I'd be lecturing, and he'd say, "Mr. Mills, keep it real." Keep it real, So I want to be real. And I love it when, I used to love it when somebody would say to me, "You don't look like a preacher." I'd say, "Well, I like that, I really like that." So that's another reason I want to share my story. Perhaps maybe you can connect in some way in your own life Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you read that book, you realize that the search for meaning begins in pain. The search for meaning begins in pain and hurt and suffering. That's when human beings ask the question, why? Why is this happening? Why did it happen? And we want to find meaning in our suffering. We want to find some reason that we're feeling pain or hurt, or that we had hardships in our lives. Why did that happen to me? Why did that happen to us? And we always look for a context in which to put that. Why am I suffering? Well, I'm suffering because of this or that or the other. We always look for a cause. If you're a Christian or you were raised like me in a Christian environment, you may recall the story where Jesus and his disciples come upon this blind man, and the first questions his disciples ask is, does anyone know? What sin did this man commit because he was born blind? So what's the implication? Tell me, what's the implication? We suffer, why? Because we did something bad. We committed a sin, or our parents, our fourth, fifth generation, and we're suffering because of sin. Now, I went down that path for a long time in my trying to find a context in which to put the pain I was going through, until I came across Carl Jung's writing, and that kind of gave me a different perspective on psychological suffering, other than just being punished for sins that I committed. But I did go down that path for a while, that I'm hurting because I did something wrong in the past and God is punishing me for it. Now, that's not just a Christian idea. That's also a Greek idea. From the ancient Greeks, you're punishing because you offended the gods in some way and you're suffering for it. And that goes back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians were fond of that idea too, that you're suffering because you offended the god in some way. So that's a context in which we try to find meaning for our suffering. Suffering because, something I did was wrong or whatever. Now, there are kinds and degrees of suffering, and for the longest time, and I still do this to get a perspective on, my own struggles, is to say, well, at least I didn't go through what they went through, so I shouldn't complain. And I think it's okay to do that, but I don't think it's okay to dismiss the struggles you had in life and brush them aside and say, well, it could have been better, could have been worse. And I still find myself, and my wife and I do this, we'll say, well, at least we're not in Gaza. To get a perspective on what we're dealing with. Our daughter's death and all. Well, at least we're not living in Gaza. Or at least we're not living in Ukraine. I think it's okay to go there, to process through that. But I don't think you should use that as a way to dismiss your own struggles, however lightly you may see them to be. Put them on a scale and say, well, I'm only a 1 and their suffering is a 10. You can do that, but don't stay there, And of course, don't get stuck in your stuff, you know what I mean? So you're just spinning your wheel in it. Poor me, poor me. It's my parents' fault. It's their fault, somebody's fault. You don't want to get stuck there either. I was stuck there for a while. I blamed my dad. My dad, I've got about 10 minutes to tell a story that lasted 30 years, till that point when I began to heal. My mother and my father, so I'm just going to go over I'm just going to touch on things that happened. We don't have time to dwell on it. My mother and my father were just not a match from the get-go. My mother was from a stable family. Her father was the mayor of Hendersonville for 38 years. Got me out of a lot of trouble. Her mother was a nurse. She grew up in a stable home. Went to nursing school in Orangeburg, South Carolina to train to be a nurse. And there she met my father, who was a patient in the hospital. He had been shot in a gang fight in his abdomen. We don't know, he never talked about it, so we don't know the details of it. All we know is he was shot, and he was in the hospital, and the prognosis was bad, that he was going to die. But he didn't. He lived through that. And about so many months later, they married. My mother and my father married. He was from a broken home. He was raised by an alcoholic mother. He had a brother. He quit school in the 8th grade. You would think that being shot in the abdomen and almost dying would change you, but it didn't change my father. He kept drinking, and he was violent. And some of my earliest memories are two of my sisters and my mother locked in their bedroom, and he's trying to break down the door to get to them because he's drunk and he wants to be violent. Maybe you recall that other memory I share of my father coming home drunk and taking his fist and breaking out the windows with his fist. Those are some of my earliest memories of my dad. He was gone a lot because he would go on drunken binges and we wouldn't see him for a while. One of the earliest memories I have of him is he bought some hot dogs. He bought them home. We were going to have them for dinner, and I ate one of them. Big mistake. He set me down at the kitchen table. He took out the rest of the hot dogs and said, "Eat all of them." And he sat and watched me eat 8 hot dogs, raw hot dogs. That was my dad. He was mean. You may recall Jim, his talk when he told about being afraid of his dad. Well, we were afraid of my father. I started having panic attacks, and they would last not for hours, but for days and sometimes weeks. One of my sisters knew that I was going through struggles. She wrote me a little note of encouragement, and she signed it Butterfly for some reason. And it's like hands in my brain just kind of reached out and grabbed that word butterfly, and I kept saying it over to myself. And I think back on that, and I think what that was a message from what you would call the collective unconscious, saying to me, you're going to go through a dark period, but you'll sprout your wings. I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was darkness. But I kept saying butterfly, butterfly, butterfly. I started taking walks up the mountain behind Carl Sandburg's estate, Connemara, because that's where I lived in Flat Rock. Walk up to the mountain, and I would sit on the same rock he sat on, and in depression and suicidal. And I remember hearing a voice, and I didn't hear it out there. I did hear it in here. I wasn't quite to the point I was hallucinating. But the voice said, music will save you. And so then I shot up in the high, came down the mountain just as high as a kite, and then looked down at my window and saw my Volkswagen crashed. And it wasn't really crashed, and then it went down. So it was up and down for a while. It was during that time that I wound up in the fetal position in the living room floor of the apartment where I rented. And the next day, I was determined to take my life. I was going to kill myself. And so I went back. I was going back up to the rock, and I was going to jump. And halfway up on that trip up there, I started repeating the word butterfly to myself. And the voice inside said, you need to go to the hospital. So I went back home, called my mother and my sister. They took me to the emergency room of the hospital. The doctor said, I think he's on some kind of drug. From there, they took me to Trinity Health Center, and I began my treatment at that local health center in Hendersonville. I was doing both group therapy and individual therapy. And, it was really a struggle to be in that group of people who were going through the same thing I was going through. And one of the most horrendous things I'd ever witnessed in my life was a woman who sat across from me with her face burned. And she said that Satan had told her to put her face in boiling water because of something, I don't know. And it just clued me in on the struggle that we all have to heal. And my healing began there. And I forgot to tell you, I was hospitalized 3 days in a psychiatric ward of Party Hospital. And after I got out, then I went to Trent. You know, I can't, it's kind of like back to what Jim was saying in his It Takes a Village. It was the love of my family, it was the love of my mother and my sisters and my grandfather that really, I think, pulled me through all that and got me on the road to healing. About a month after all of that happened, I applied to seminary to go to Duke. And I think, well, they won't take me. Well, they took me. And so 3 months later, in September, in January, September, October, November, December, January, I was on my way to Duke Divinity School. And I'm going to save that story for next time, part 2. Anyway, thank y'all for listening. I appreciate you listening. And as I say, I share that story in hopes that, you know, that you can feel that in this community here, we can be real. And we can share our stories if we're so inclined to do that. And I really feel like, and you know, I think I felt like I could tell this story to you all. Never before told it, because I feel like I could trust you all. And that you would listen and not. I shared that part of that story one time, a little bit of that story, and one of the parishioners came up and said, "Are you crazy?" And my first reaction was no, but then I thought later, I said, well, yeah. You know, you've got to be a little crazy to live in this crazy world, you know. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is The Glory of Love. If you may have remembered it from Jimmy Durant. So if you know the words, I don't think we'll line up this anymore.
I'd love to sing along. Sure. You've got to give a little, take a little, and let your poor heart break a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. You gotta laugh a little, cry a little, until those clouds roll by a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. As long as there's the two of us, we've got the world and all of its charms. And when the world is through with us, we've got each other's arms. You got to win a little, lose a little, and always have the blues a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. Take it, Ernie. As long as there's the two of us, we've got the world and all its charms. And when the world is through with us, we've always got each other's arms. You've got to win a little, lose a little, and always have those blues a little, 'cause that's the story of, and that's the glory of love. 'Cause that's the story of, and that's the glory of love.
Thank you, Rob. Do we have anybody have any final thoughts, comments, queries, or opposing viewpoints before we close?
Well, I want to say thank you for sharing your story.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for listening.
So powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your story, and the music today was wonderful with everybody participating. It's just really
Thank
a
you,
special
Sally.
service.
Thank you.
I agree with Sally, and I also, and everybody, and I just wish that song that you were singing when we walked in and everybody was talking with each other, if you could play that, you guys could do that one again. It was wonderful.
I think it was something about war, right? We don't want no war no more. Yeah. Is that it, Ellen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, when y'all are mixing and mingle, Derek and I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Serious when I say this, but thank you all for listening to that. You know, we really do need to listen to each other. And one of my friends, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We ought to take the hint. All right. I want you all, if you would, to turn. I'm going to read this, but I want you to see what I'm reading. It's 682. It's our benediction. And I just want to remind us all that as much as there is struggle and pain in life, there's also beauty in the world. And one of the things I think that I've learned through my story is that it's taught me to be more compassionate, more empathetic, and more appreciative of the simple things in life. So let's don't forget that in all this darkness, there's beauty to be found and beauty to be seen. This is a reading from the Navajo Indians, and I'll read it. Beauty is before me and beauty behind me. Above me and below me hovers the beautiful. I'm surrounded by it. I'm immersed in it. In my youth, I am aware of it. And in old age, I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail. In beauty it began. In beauty it ended. Thank you. Have a great day. While you're mixing and mingling, Derek and I'll sing that song. I'm getting ahead of myself. Join with me, please. We extinguish the flame of this chalice. Let us follow the light of truth until we meet again. Now let's sing together. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots only close,
little more. I said, let it fill the